And we're back again. Greetings, one and all. You're listening to the Weigh-In podcast, where we discuss all things boxing. I'm Andrew Bonts, and joining me on the scales today, I've got Steve. How you doing, bro?
Yeah, good, bro.
And I've got Ray A in the building.
Come on, in the place to be boxing. What's happening?
Good stuff, man. So just the three of us today. We've given our chief sparring partner, Clive, the weekend off, and he'll be joining us back for another episode. If this is your first time tuning in, make sure you subscribe. Drop us a comment, share, and press that all-important like button. You can also find us on Instagram. So, guys, how's your week been?
Yeah, man. So ducking and diving, surviving. You know how it goes.
Keeping busy these COVID times. So hopefully this time next year we'll be in attendance for great matches.
Oh, for real. Yeah, we're just talking about doing a TWI excursion out to watch one of the fights. Hopefully in the summer we'll be back out doing that. But until then, we're here to bring you some content, get you through those bored days, you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. So we've got lots to talk about. I must say, guys, there's hardly ever a dull week in the sport. Just when you think nothing's happening, boom, we get major fight news, we get all important dates and more.
Including the return of Eubank Jr., having signed a new promotional deal coming back to the UK.
That's right. And we'll discuss Eubank Jr. later on in the show. We haven't really got any fights to review as such. It's more a case of us just talking about several intriguing bouts coming in the weeks and months. So, Steve, I dropped a number of dates in our group chat the other day, and I know you was pleased to kind of see some of the fight announcements.
It's been a phenomenal week for fight announcements, especially if you're a UK boxing fan. And I think as being a UK boxing or being a boxing fan in general, one of the biggest parts of it is comment on upcoming fights, making predictions. So not even talking about fights that have actually happened, but speculating about future fights. So with that in mind, it was really exciting to hear the first one that got announced, the big bombshell, was Frampton will be fighting Jemel Herring coming to the UK. So we've got a huge star like Jemel Herring, Frampton, one of our biggest stars in the UK, one of our bona fide pay-per-view stars in the UK. He carries the nation of Northern Ireland on his back. And they love him and he loves them. And yeah, so he's going to be fighting for the junior lightweight title, moving up in weight. It's a tough ask for the Northern Irishman. He's looking to become the first 3-division weight world champion from Northern Ireland, but he's got a tough ask. Jemel Herring is a big boy. He's no joke, and he's part of a very, very buoyed up training team out there with Bud Crawford and Maurice Hooker. Trained by Brian McIntyre, so he's G'd up and he's having a real Indian summer to his career, and it's going to be a good fight live at the O2 in the UK. Props to my boy Frank Warren.
That's some big fight news there. And I'm Ray. I mean, this fight was actually planned for June 2020 in Belfast before the pandemic kind of took hold. How do you rate Frampton's chances against Jemel Herring?
I think it's going to be a scary Frampton to face, especially because as he gets older, he knows that these opportunities aren't always going to come knocking, especially during these pandemic times. He's going to have to go for it because he's got a lot of pressure on him. They've got a big venue now. They've got high expectations on him. But, you know him, he thrives on the occasion. He looks to rise to it. So hopefully we get a record-breaking night for Frampton.
Yeah, I think it's a real match of styles here because obviously, you've got Frampton moving up. He'd done his best work, really, at super bantamweight. And then he moved up to featherweight. He had some close but ultimately disappointing nights against the likes of Josh Warrington. And now he's moving up again to super featherweight to try to make history. But he's got all the boxing skills any fighter could possibly want. He's very explosive as well. And he punched very, very hard when he was at super bantamweight. So I'm not worried about that. But the size is an issue. He's a shorter fighter. And will his reflexes carry that weight with him? I'm not too sure. And Herring is a big boy for super featherweight, and he boxes well. But it's more the strength. Will he be able to make an impact? Will Frampton be able to make an impact in Herring? It remains to be seen. So we've got the size versus the skills. At the peaks of their career, Frampton was arguably a far superior fighter. But weight and this new champion status that Herring has found himself with. It's gonna be a really, really good fight.
Steve, in Herring's last fight, it kind of ended in controversy. Remember that one?
He got a cut. It was and then it was ruled a clash of. It was ruled an intentional headbutt by the opponent. it got ruled off, and he won by a DQ, which is not how you really want to win. And before that, leading up to the fight, he looked tired. It was a little bit of a flat performance. But he says, that's not the real him. That can happen in boxing. It's been a very strange year. I'm sure his training was affected. I believe that there was COVID-related delays on the fight. These things, they're going to mess with you. So I think if anyone turned in a bad performance in 2020, you can draw a line under it. And 2021 is a new time. But believe me, Herring is a real fighter. The longer he spends with Brian McIntyre out there in Nebraska with Crawford learning, he's going to be on his game. Don't you worry about that.
Good stuff. So that's some big fight action. And the winner of this fight will be likely to be ordered to fight against number one contender Shakur Stevenson later on in the year. Now, Ray, I know you highly rate Stevenson. What is it about the youngster that makes you think he's the real deal?
I think he's just got a slick style to him. Like, he really prides himself on to hit and not get hit, a la Mayweather, but I'd say with a bit more aggression. He reminds me of a more pre-boy Floyd instead of a money Mayweather, that they're still defensively sound, but offensively they can still hit you with some heat. So he's going to be looking over that fight with some interest. I know that he's also got his eyes on the lightweight division above, so I know he's going to look to make some noise, rack up some belts, and then come for people higher. So I know he's got huge aspirations of being the next big pay-per-view star. So it's not a bad way to start with fighting the winner of these two. And I know his name is highly up there. He was an Olympian. So full credit to him. He's there to be great. And so it'll be interesting to see how Shakur goes from here.
I'd like to just add one quick one on Shakur Stevenson. I was just looking him up today and just reminding myself of his skill set. I didn't realize how young he was. I forgot how young he was.
Yeah.
He's 23 years old and he won a silver medal at the 2016 Olympics. Very skilled young man. Like Ray said, he could be the future of boxing, and just another guy in that kind of weight that we've already talked so much about. Yeah, good fighter.
Well, before Herring and Frampton touch gloves, Matchroom have kind of announced their 2021 lineup of shows. It's been exciting, hasn't it? I mean, they really, really kind of excited us over in the group chats, didn't they?
They really wanted to trump Frank Warren with their announcements. It's like Frank Warren dropped a big one with Carl Frampton fight, and then Matchroom just said, "Oh, wait for me a sec."
Oh,
and then, quite the lineup.
Absolutely. So on the 13th of February, live on Sky Sports, undefeated IBF featherweight king Josh Warrington will take on the Mexicans Mauricio Lara. The top fight there for Warrington.
I think it's not the fight that everyone wanted to see. He was lined up to fight a guy called Can Zhu. He's the WBA champion from China. A really big following and a very skillful fighter, but a fight that I think Warrington would have been favoured to win that one, especially if he got the home advantage. And I know that he was really chomping at the bit for that fight. So for that to fall through, I'm sure is very, very disappointing. But I think they're doing the right thing, taking we're not going to say a warm-up fight, but he's going to. It's not the fight. We don't expect him to lose this fight, and then that sets up those big fights against the likes of Kid Galahad, the likes of Can Zhu.
I guess that's the kind of consequences of the pandemic, Raymond, where a lot of fights will fall through due to travel logistics and whatnot. Warrington, 30, he's still an undefeated fighter. He's king in his division. How important is it him that he kind of really stays dedicated and focused on this fight?
I think fights like these are important because sometimes you just want to get your name out there, especially during a pandemic when a lot of the schedules can be staggered a bit. I think he's very good now. What's helped, I think combat sports got helped a lot in an unfortunate time in that a lot of stars were able to get showcased at a time where many different sports couldn't be played. So I think they just need to carry on that trend of looking impressive, and then I guess Warrington can make his name a more household one with an impressive performance, and then with a call out at the end of a victory, you got your name out there, more people wanting to watch you, and then go on from there.
With that in mind, just one last thing. We know that Warrington is a real warrior. He's he's got that lead spirit. He's a real hot-headed guy, and it shows in his fight. He's a come forward, throws a million punches. I just hope that he doesn't throw in his need to impress. After the pandemic, he doesn't throw his boxing head out the window. There's a long career to be had. Don't get silly, but I'm looking forward to it.
It'll be a real shame for Warrington as well, because he brings a massive crowd with him to any fight he has. If we're still going to be in lockdown.
What I'd be really interested to see actually is he fought since Leeds came back to the Premier League. with Biesla, like, you know, he's got that Leeds following. That they'd be so amped up right now. Their football team plays the same way that he boxes. Just go.
Gang ho.
And,
a lot of energy.
Be crazy excited. Yeah, I reckon that would be some event to get to, man. If you go and watch him fight.
So fingers crossed, fans can come to watch Josh Warrington. Also on the night, guys, Zelf Barrett takes on Kiko Martinez. The Manchester Super Featherweight contender takes him on. Kiko Martinez is a top fighter there. You know, he's definitely experienced, isn't he?
He's experienced. I think he's a bit over the hill, and he's done his best work, obviously, you know, in the lower weights, the super bantamweight. So it's a good bit of matchmaking for Zelf Barrett. But I will say that Zelf Barrett is a very talented guy, and he's kind of an underrated prospect. You know, coming through, he's had a little loss there to Ronnie Clark, but those things can happen. It was a good learning fight. He's come back with with 3 or 4 good KOs since then. So he's obviously learned from it. And he, I don't know if you've alluded to it already, but he trains with his uncle Pat, who's guided Lyndon Arthur to his victory over Anthony Yard. And you can really see the shades of Lyndon Arthur in his boxing, and you kind of get that with gyms a lot of the time. A lot of the fighters coming through want to kind of emulate the star of the gym. But now he's coming out into his own, and this could be a big year for him. It's a good fight. Hopefully he looks good.
Yeah, he's a top fighter, and he's definitely putting money on the map, isn't he?
Yeah, listen, the Killer Bees in Manchester, 0161 shout, Bugsy Malone. I think the Killer Bees up in Manchester, I think after that Lyndon Arthur win, I feel like they've started to get some real pride in their chest and to let the nation know, although we're humble, we're still a big name. And I think they just want to continue this. It kind of reminds me of the Garcia Campbell situation, that you've got the young up-and-comer, and now is like his time, even though Kiko may be past it, but he's still got some left in the tank. So now Zelf has got to prove himself on the world stage. Can you beat people at this level? Because it's only going to get harder from here. So this is going to be a key fight for him. And if he's impressive right now with this win, listen, more Killer Bees going to be swarming in Manchester, I'll tell you that.
Definitely. So, and a week later, February the 20th, live on Sky Sports again, Josh Kelly returns to action. Steve.
Yeah, he's fighting a very tough Russian called Avanesyan, and he's the European welterweight champion, and for good reason. They were supposed to fight previously, and the fight fell through. There's a lot of controversy you can look into. We won't go into it now, but a very humorous press conference followed it. And in that kind of time that Josh Kelly wasn't available, Avanesyan said, "I'm not going to wait around." He went out to Spain, and he took on a home fighter out there, and he had a rematch contract in there. You know, you've got to be the real home fighter to get a rematch contract. He not only goes and beats him once, he then wins the rematch in the rematch contract and walks out of there with the guy's European title. And then that made him the free agent to walk around. I'm the European champion. He comes back to Josh Kelly. Eddie Hearn, unfortunately, had to put his hand in his pocket and pay the guy an absolute fortune to make the fight up.
Doesn't he? He means business.
So Avanesyan is no joke, and Josh Kelly, he's got all the skills, and he went to the Olympics young, and he trains with Adam Booth, who's a fantastic trainer. And he's tougher than he looks. They call him the pretty boy. He's tough. He can fight. He can hang and bang. But I just worry, has he got the power at the top level that Avanesyan is operating off to deter someone like Avanesyan, who's tough and rugged and will keep coming?
Well, I guess these are the kind of fights you want to see him to really see where he is.
And it's a real crossroads fight. And if he comes through this and he comes through well, I would make a bold prediction that he'll win a world title. But we'll find out in this fight. It's one of those fights,
Cool. So also in the bill, we've got the undefeated welterweights, Florian Marku taking on Rylan Charlton. Now, I don't know if you guys have seen either of these fighters, but there's a lot of bad blood between them, and it's promised to be a real explosive 10-round battle.
They call Ryan Garcia the Instagram champion or whatever, but I'm sure Florian Marku's got to take that title, man. He's like
he's king.
There was so much hype about it. I couldn't read a YouTube comment. You know how we do, boxing fans. We like to read those YouTube comments. And like anything to do with Florian Marku, the Albanian fans just come out in force, leaving Albanian flags everywhere. My boy will met like really. He gets his debut on Matchroom and he gets a draw. So,
that was quite controversial, though, wasn't it?
A little bit controversial. So he's got, for all his talk, he's still got to back it up. He looked good. He looks like there's some talent there that you cannot lie. And this is like you say, a real bad blood fight. He's a real he's good at what he does. He's good at generating a buzz, Marku. Like, I've only seen him box once on an undercard, but he's so famous just from like his antics and calling out O'Hara Davis and stuff like that. Yeah, I hope he can get a few wins. I hope he can get like a meaningful fight against someone, because I think the build up would just be hilarious. He seems like a proper funny bloke.
And Charlton, you seen him much of him?
Yeah, tough fighter. I don't know. I think I'm probably picking Charlton, to be honest, to win this fight. Charlton's strong and a game boy. Yeah, so Marku's got it all to do. But we'll see. Remains to be seen.
Yeah, it remains to be seen. Another fight I want to pick out on that card is Anthony Fowler. He returns to action. Yeah, he's still kind of trying to overcome that defeat against. Remind me, Steve.
Yeah, in the light middleweight division, he's a real workhorse. He's got a good engine on him, and he's a former Olympian. But has he got the skills at the top level to do what he's to go all the way? I do worry. But apparently he's an absolute workhorse, and that's it. He's got the right attitude. So we'll see how he gets on.
Yeah, definitely. Sorry, it was Scott Fitzgerald who he lost against back in 2019. Now he's since bounced back with a handful of wins. He's definitely someone who really, really works hard. And I follow him on Instagram, and you see these training videos. He gives it his all, doesn't he? Yeah,
definitely. And he comes from a very sporting family. His cousin is the god, Robbie Fowler. So like when you've got that pedigree in your family, you obviously know what it takes to be like an elite level sportsman and to be around that. So yeah, he's been to the Olympics, and everyone who worked with him going to the Olympics at Team GB just said he got there off sheer grit and work ethic. Like not to detract from his talent, but it wasn't his talent that got him there. He just really worked his way towards it. So that's good.
Mm-hmm. So that's Anthony Fowler, who returns to action against George Fortea. Guys, I want to move on to the fights in March. It's a big one. It's a pay-per-view fight, and it's the return of Dillian Whyte. We spoke last week in the last episode about the fights of the year, and this one definitely got us really entertained. Povetkin against Dillian Whyte, a massive upset, some would say, while other boxing guys will say, no, Povetkin's king. He's been there for years. We kind of expected it.
A fan of mouth-watering fight. Like you just like as soon as that got announced, that's got to be the pinnacle of all the fights that got announced. Frampton, we liked it, but Povetkin White, it's got that magic, and I think it's a bona fide pay-per-view fight. I genuinely don't know what's going to happen in that fight. I can't call it.
It's a do or die moment for White, I'd say. It's like obviously we've always enjoyed this fight. We've always enjoyed when he gets so far but comes so close. But now I think is a very big crossroad where that small gap of opportunity to make it to the top is getting shorter, unfortunately. And I think now White has to really go there and make a statement and finally get that WBC belt. I still don't understand how he's not being given at least an interim by WBC with the way they hand out belts. But
there's something quite poetic about Dillian Whyte in the sense that he kind of captures the spirit of the British boxer, just really funny, working class, and sort
of
an
underdog,
but perennially unlucky. I think that's why we all love him, and I'd love to see him go the whole way and get there, because you see careers go the wrong way. So, and it's going to start with this. Hopefully, you can put on a good performance. But like you said, Povetkin is a monster. You don't get gold medals, don't come in cereal boxes. World titles don't come in cereal boxes, and it's a tough fight. But Dillian Whyte, he's shown in the past he thrives under this stuff. So I got to back my boy.
I'm going to ask you guys, is it going to be repeat or revenge on March 6th?
Revenge all day. Revenge, son.
Revenge.
Definitely. I definitely agree with you. So
it will be sweet.
Yes, yeah.
So make sure you leave us a comment on the bottom of our screen there if you think Dillian Whyte will overcome the challenge of Povetkin, or maybe you think Povetkin's going to win it again. And that really kind of blows up the whole division, because we spent this whole episode, we've not once mentioned Tyson Fury. We haven't mentioned Deontay Wilder or Anthony Joshua. So a win for either guy puts them back into the equation, doesn't it?
Well, it was great. Like those announcements, it just kind of reminded us that boxing's bigger than Tyson Fury, Ryan Garcia, Teofimo Lopez. there's a lot, there's a lot more that all these other guys have to offer, and it needs to trickle down. And they just put out a reminder that we love the sport. There's more to this sport than Anthony Joshua. The Anthony Joshua and the Tyson Furies, they bring people to our sport, but there's so much to offer, so many good fights coming up, and I can't wait.
So also on the bill, Ipswich heavyweight Fabio Wardley, he steps up against former world title challenger Eric Molina, and that one really caught me by surprise there, because Molina's no mug there, is he?
No, he's not. He's a former world title challenger against Anthony Joshua. And although he came short, and he's come up big short, do you know what I mean? He's been stopped in a couple of rounds. He pushed Deontay Wilder 10 rounds, I think. So there's no mug there. And Fabio Wardley's at the beginning of his career, he hasn't won a British title. He's even into double figures of his fights yet. Fabio Wardley, he really impressed me last year. And I think he's one of our best prospects coming up. He looks the part, he talks the part. Yeah, and he fights the part as well. He's got some good stoppage wins. He's working with Dillian Whyte. He's managed by Dillian Whyte, and I think he's one to watch for the future. I'd say, heavyweight prospect.
Dillian's getting quite the roster, isn't he? Of fighters, a lot of quality fighters. You're starting to see step up, and then a lot of them managed by Dillian Whyte, and I'm very happy to see that, because I guess is more of a thing of also preparing him for post-boxing career that you're seeing a lot of the time now. Oh, this impressive fighter coming from so-and-so. Oh, and he's managed by Dillian Whyte. So I'm happy to see that he's mentoring a lot of these younger boxers, so they don't have to go the politics that he went through, and he can help guide them to, I guess, a more straight and narrow road than having to go through the zigzags that he went through.
It's a really good point. And Dillian Whyte is he appears to be a very clever man. Do you know what I mean? While he saw an opportunity while he was at the pinnacle of the sport, headlining pay-per-views, selling out O2s. He came to these boys with a 50-50 deal. Because he's a boxer himself, you kind of have faith that he's not going to shaft these guys in the same way that some questionable characters in boxing would. And he's saying, I can get you that outlet on Sky Sports. If you're the fighter that's managed by Dillian Whyte, suddenly people are going to want to, man, it must be good then. And they're looking over, and then that's all you need is that little leg up. And then when you're Fabio Wardley, you look over, you see a good-looking dude knocking people's spark out, and you're getting good fights like Molina on Sky Sports, and he's taking those opportunities and doing really well with them. It works. That was a 50-50 deal. They both played their part, and credit to both of them. I hope Dillian Whyte continues to do that for people.
And I guess it makes it really exciting for those British heavyweights now, because we've kind of got two separate divisions, haven't we?
Yeah.
You've got the elite fighters in Anthony Joshua, in Tyson Fury, and then you've got I'll say Chisora, and then you've got the other guys as well, haven't you?
Chisora he's a league of his own, that guy. But you're telling me in a year down the line you could build up Fabio Wardley against Dubois when he's on the comeback trail. Those guys could clash, and what a fight that would be. And then you got Nathan Gorman up there in Manchester.
Even Joe Joyce, we keep on forgetting about Joe Joyce.
Joe Joyce pushed himself onto that world title level now. I'd like to see Joe Joyce fight Usyk, and he sort of pushed himself out of the UK scene. Like Andy was saying, there's two leagues, and then there's that middle league that has Chisora, Joyce, and Usyk. So Usyk and Chisora fought. Let Joyce and Usyk fight now and see where the cookie crumbles.
Yeah.
Good stuff. So on Sky Sports pay-per-view, Povetkin against Dillian Whyte on March the 6th. Also in March, we have Lawrence Okolie, who attempts to be Britain's next world champion.
The source.
Yeah, he said 16 fights now, and he's on the verge of winning that WBO cruiserweight title. Raymond, how do you see it?
I think the zone that he's in, he is locked in. I can't see him not getting that belt. Seeing how impressive he's looked since joining McGregor, just seeing how he looked in his last fight. Yes, it was short notice, but you still have to go out there and execute, because we've seen many fighters that have had late minute changes, and then the fight goes on for a long time, but they're not adjusted right. Lawrence adjusted. He put an impressive performance, got another knockout. He went from the guy that everyone was, I guess, critiquing style a lot, to the guy that's oh wow, he's getting a lot of knockouts. And he's another guy that prides himself on not taking too much damage, but doing the damage himself, being the hammer and not the nail. And I think just the adjustments that he's made with McGregor has just been shown evidence that this is a new beast, and this is a new guy that could become the UK's next star, hopefully with an impressive victory in his world title performance, and then he can become the next undisputed cruiserweight. And be in a conversation with the Hayes and the Usyks of the best cruiserweights ever.
Yeah, he's an unbelievable fighter. He's very big for the weight and he's very strong. I just like to add as well, like he started boxing in his late teens or maybe even at the age of 20, because he was overweight and he was working in Victoria Station McDonald's. So, you know, whatever position you are in life, boys.
What a story.
You know, he went to the Olympics and now he's about to win that world title. So if you're in a position you're not happy with in life, you never know what could happen, man. Look at Okolie.
Definitely. So now it's really exciting, guys. I mean, I want to say, I mean, even in the pandemic, I feel like it's the strongest start to a year in the UK for a very, very long time. I mean, I've not even mentioned the guys across the States. I haven't mentioned Canelo, Spence Jr., you know, all these guys there that are going to be dominating headlines in boxing. But Steve and Ray, quickly, I was going to ask you, out of all the fight announcements today, which fight kind of really excites you? Which one are you kind of going to be glued at the TV?
Well, you've got to say White Povetkin. I think like a lot of people would say that. But I think, you know, an underrated one is Josh Kelly against Avanesyan. It's you know, I was really looking forward to that fight on the way back, and it's a crossroads fight for one of our Olympians, and it's one of those ones where a star could be born. And I hope, because you know, he's a good-looking kid, he's really sellable, and I hope that he can come out and look really good on that night. But I'm looking forward to that one. Outside of Povetkin White, obviously.
I think my top three are Frampton Herring, Barrett First Martinez, and then Okolie's fight as well. I'm just looking forward to seeing, hopefully, the crowning of the new cruiserweight king. The UK is hot right now. Like Andy said, we might be in a space of, you know, waiting on the US to make noise, but the UK is making its noise by itself. So it'll be interesting to see where the scene goes.
Fantastic. So exciting stuff. And make sure you catch us out on the way in. We'll definitely be talking about all the fight action.
Now, if you're a regular of the show, you'll know that I'm a huge fan of Ricky Hatton. But to make you all feel old, boys, his son, Campbell Hatton, makes his professional debut on the White v Povetkin undercard. So it's another legend, UK legend, legend's son, following in the footsteps of the family business. We've seen Eubank Jr., we've seen Conor Benn following their father's footsteps. And I'm sure you'll join me in wishing young Campbell Hatton all the best in his new journey.
Man, feeling old is the right statement, because I still remember watching Ricky Hatton on 24/7, the HBO 24/7 series of following the fighters' lives, and I still remember little Campbell Hatton, and Ricky was even saying himself he doesn't want his son to follow in his footsteps. So he must have done a lot of convincing to convince his dad to let him fight, because I remember Ricky Hatton swore that I'm fighting, so you don't have to. So to see Campbell Hatton fighting now, it's just like, crazy. Wow, the last time we saw you on the screen, you was that little primary school kid running around, no cares in the world, and now he's a pro boxer. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's half the career that his dad had. I'm sure he'll be doing all right, you know.
No, it looks really exciting there. I saw his workout on YouTube the other day, and he looks the part, doesn't he?
The same ferocity as his dad and the same face as his dad.
Yeah, it's like a CGI makeup of his son, but no, definitely looking forward to it.
Back, yeah.
It'll be interesting to see who has the best legacy of the new UK Sons edition, because obviously you got, like you said, you got Eubank Jr., you got Conor Benn, now Campbell Hatton. So it'll be intriguing to see how they follow up from their father's footsteps and paving their own way as well to have their own name in their own respect.
Absolutely. And you can actually see Conor Benn. He fights April the 10th live on Sky Sports. He defends his WBA Continental title against Samual Vargas, who's actually got an amazing resume, hasn't he, Steve?
Oh, that's a real tough fight. You know, they said like Conor Benn was supposed to be a gimmick. You know, just coming through. He is taking some serious fights now. Samuel Vargas. You know, you remember him from on the UK shores last time he was over here, knocking down Amir Khan. And giving Amir Khan a good night's work. You know, he went some good rounds of Errol Spence, and always gives a good account of himself. Very, very tough man, and just like a fringe world contender guy. You know, if you're not about it, if you're not the guy, Samuel Vargas will find you out. So it's a real tough fight for Conor Benn, and hopefully he can overcome that. But definite potential banana skin there.
Good stuff. So fingers crossed for Conor Benn. Now, guys, earlier in the week we saw Eubank Jr. sign a promotional deal to link up with Sauerland as he kind of starts his bid to win a middleweight world title. He's currently based in the US and he's trained by the boxing legend Roy Jones Jr., who of course took on Mike Tyson at the back end of last year. WBA interim champion who's targeting world title honors. Raymond, I know you're a fan of Chris Eubank Jr. However, you've definitely been left frustrated by his kind of staggered career. Finally, let's hope finally that this year is the year we see Chris Eubank Jr. become world champion.
Especially now that, like you said, he's interim champ now. WBA, that Canelo just dropped. So I believe that they've given it to Murata. So the sooner they make this Murata fight, the better. I think, especially the time off might do Junior some good. So he's got more time to implement what Roy's been teaching him as well. Because sometimes when you get a new trainer, you don't want to go into a fight straight away because you want to make sure that the tools that they've taught you isn't coming in one ear and coming out the other. So it'll be interesting to see how he looks now with Roy, whether he's going to go straight into that fight with Murata or if he wants a tune-up fight first just to make sure that the mechanics with Roy works out well. But it'll be interesting. Listen, I'm rooting for him the most because I think now he's had a lot of close calls before, but I think now is the prove it moment. Like, are you the real deal? Are you finally going to be Chris Eubank, the son of Chris Eubank Sr., or are you going to be Chris Eubank Jr. in your own right? And I think this will be a big test. Mentally, he's always shown that he's up for the task. We just need the technical capabilities to match that. And if it does, then listen, there's going to be big fights for him because Jamal Charlo is not the biggest fan of Chris Eubank. And that cross-Atlantic fight could be millions for both of them. So hopefully, fingers crossed, Chris Eubank can do it. And then big fights ahead from there.
Definitely. Steve, I mean, Ray's mentioned Charlo. I want to mention Golovkin. There's a number of big names in this division for Chris Eubank Jr.
Yeah, don't overlook our very own Liam Williams. On over here, like he's doing some good stuff with Frank Warren. Just signed with the Ingle Gym, and really, really looking good as well, looking ferocious, and he's looking for a big fight himself. Chris Eubank is sort of paying the price for trying to be a renegade in the sport. You get these guys, they come into the game and they think, I don't need a promoter. The promoters shaft people. I can do this on my own. Like I can come up with my own way. David Hay did it. Audley Harrison did it. And sometimes it works. When it works well because you're on your own man. But it's you don't get the consistency of being with a promoter and having a consistent career. So that's why he's had that kind of stop-start career, because he tried to gamble, do his own way, go and try and, he signed with Channel 5. He went out to America. So it's exciting. I think for me, the pick would be Golovkin. Get Golovkin over here, pay him a bundle of cash. The fight between Chris Eubank Jr. and Golovkin, the styles would just match up. Oh God, I can feel the shots now. Ferocious.
I mean, it's been 2 years since he's kind of career best fight against James DeGale, wasn't it?
Yeah. It's a shame. There was talk of him fighting Darrell at one point, which never materialized. It happens to those fighters who go out to America. The British fighters who go to America, there's opportunities there, and they can make good money. They almost get forgotten about in the UK scene, and they kind of get lost in no man's land. It actually happened to DeGale himself when he went out there as well. It's a shame that he didn't get to build on that fight. Arguably he could have had the Callum Smith fight. Maybe he could have had the Canelo fight, but he wasn't a matchroom fighter at that point. So.
Well, Steve, let's not forget he actually did fight in America, wasn't it, in his debut?
Oh yes, and Kobarov.
Yeah, Matt Kobarov.
Yeah.
That only lasted a round, I think, because of an injury that.
Just clarify, that was his US debut. He went out there for his UF debut against Matt Korobov. Matt Korobov was a good fighter, but it ended. I think that ended with an injury to Matt Korobov. Matt Korobov was a very good fighter, very avoided fighter actually, and our very own Andy Lee done a job on him to win his world title, and that's who Andy Lee won his world title off of. In a fight that he wasn't expected to win, he went over there as the away fighter and managed to get the stoppage of Matt from behind on the scorecards. So yeah, he's a well seasoned guy, and at 31 years old, Chris Eubank, like Ray said, is ready to become his own man. He's not a kid anymore. I feel like he's got something to prove, and he always had a chip on his shoulder anyway from like, you know, being his dad's son and wanted to step out of that. And now, you know, I think he's going to be ferocious when he comes back.
It's like that. It's like, to take a football analogy. Remember when with Walcott they kept on saying, "Oh, potential," and then this is the point where it's like you got to make that crossover from potential to certified talent. And I think this is that time for Eubank. He's a bit too old to keep on saying he's got potential to be world champion. Now is the time to do it.
Well, that's it. Again, you know, against arguably a faded De Gea, you know, I want to put respect on James De Gea's career and James De Gea's name because, you know, James De Gea in his prime against Chris Eubank would have been a very, very different fight. But still, that was Chris Eubank's crowning moment. And that was supposed to be, like you said, that was the time he fulfilled the potential. And then he stalled. So now it's back to the drawing board. So now he's got to prove it again. But if you've seen Chris Eubank fight, you know, argue like whatever fight he's in, he fights. His style is so crazy that, you know, you're gonna watch.
I mean, guys, he spent the whole of 2020 in training camp over in Florida, training with Roy Jones Jr. How key would that be to have someone so experienced, you know, a massive champion like Roy Jones Jr. in his camp?
It's invaluable, and I think you know, depending on how the personalities go, because that could go either way. Two like quite, we'll say, big personalities, big egos. Are they going to feed off each other and create like an inner circle of just championship mentality, informidable, or are they going to clash? But you know, you'd be a fool not to listen to someone like Roy Jones Jr. Like, you know,
I guess that's key though, Steve. That's quite key because if you look at Eubank Jr. over the years, it's had a number of different coaches.
Yeah.
At one point, was it Adam Booth at one point?
Yeah, Adam Booth, and they separated on, you know, unceremonious terms. At one point, he turned around and said he trains himself. You know, he said, I don't need a coach. He had his dad's very own coach who guided his dad's career. What better man could you want? You know, who guided a British boxing legend's career. And he turned around at a press conference and said, at the Billy Joe Saunders press conference, and said, the guy holds my water in the rounds, yeah, and he wraps my gloves. I train myself. And Ronnie Davies is the man's name. He's just sat there.
Yeah.
And this guy's got 50 odd years of boxing. Even Jimmy Tibbs, who, you know, is famously a very like calm man. He's a Christian. He sort of never speaks up. He doesn't want to get involved in the politics. He wants to train fighters. Even he piped up and said, "Are you having a laugh?" Like, you can't say that to, you know, Ronnie Davies. But there you go. You know, yeah. So he's like that, and that's it's what makes him him. But it could also be the undoing of him. You know, he's such a renegade.
Definitely. So yeah, fingers crossed.
Yeah, I think you're channeling it well. I think just to add to that, it's going to be interesting to see because with Roy Jones Jr., this was a very physically gifted guy. So it'll be interesting to see how he teaches someone when it comes to fundamentals, because obviously he himself was very unorthodox, but he could be afforded that when you're as quick as he was. So how does it translate of his unorthodox style to helping Chris Eubank Jr., who's unorthodox in itself, but obviously needs to get fine-tuned well to make that jump. So it'll be interesting to see what's the result of them two working together. But definitely in terms of just having the championship medal, who else would you have in your corner?
Definitely. So yeah, we wish here at the weigh-in, we wish Chris Eubank Jr. all the best in 2021. There's been some big names mentioned there. You know, Charlo, there's been Golovkin, there's even Liam Williams. So it'd definitely be interesting to see where he ends this year. Well, guys, that's all we have time for on the weigh-in. My thanks to you guys, as always, for giving us your boxing insight. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Ray. And thank you to all you guys that are listening and tuning in on our show. We appreciate you guys as always. Make sure you follow us on our socials. We'll leave the description over there. And make sure you also just drop us a comment. You know, if there's any fights you want to see, if there's any talking points in boxing that you want us to kind of tackle, please do by all means get in touch. Definitely want to encourage everyone to have their say and kind of get involved in boxing. So guys, take care, have a blessed week, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Peace.
Peace. Cheers, Andy. Cheers, guys.